Okay, we're live. Welcome to How to Build Your Own Home every Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We are in the mountains here in Southwest Utah, reaching all those out there wanting to get some assistance with regard to being an owner builder. I'm a general contractor and I actually do this every week on Thursday, and we love to help a lot of people out. We've already got a lot of people coming on board, having some questions. I have some emails from some students. And if you are chiming in on this channel later on during the week and you haven't been to this channel before and you want to have some questions answered with regard to you being an owner builder, or if you're in a process, or if you have a serious question you have regarding your build, go ahead and go to How to Build Your Own Home and contact the instructor. There's a page there. It says contact the instructor. And I print those up and I typically answer those first so that you can actually come back and listen just about any time and get some answers to your questions. Where else can you do that? You can only do that here at How to Build Your Own Home. So I'm going to start with this question, and I have a couple of thoughts on my mind. But as you're coming on board, and if you do have some questions, please let us know the region in which you're building, the state and the city. That's all I need, because that really affects how I respond to your questions. Again, give us your state or country, state, and then your region, because your temperate zone really has a big effect on how we respond to those questions. So let's start with this question here. This is from Alan. Couldn't be here, so they emailed me a question. He says, thanks for all your great information. I have purchased land this summer. Plans are with the drafts person currently. Radon is a second leading cause of lung cancer in our area, Minnesota, western Wisconsin. Okay, that really helps me where they are. I can't find much information in the coursework on the videos about radon mitigation. My design has a slab-on-grade foundation. Please comment. So I will. I need to really add a checklist to this, because I've done radon mitigation on homes before. When you're a slab-on-grade, that radon is going to come up through and hit the bottom part of that slab, and it's going to follow the path of least resistance. So what's the path of least resistance? Let's say you have some gravel underneath your slab. It's going to work up through that gravel because you've got some open cavity for that to happen. So if you have plumbing or a conduit or a vent or anything coming up through that concrete, that's your path of least resistance. And so it's going to work its way up through the slab, through a path of least resistance, even a crack, if there's a serious crack down the road, and then it's going to work its way into a home. So how do you alleviate that? Well, first thing to do is before you pour before you even prep the ground, let's say the ground is prepped, you've got your road base, it's all compacted. You put underneath at about the 3 or 4 inches below the top of the dirt or road base, which is something I love to use. You put a perforated pipe, and they have these pipes that are kind of spongy, and they have a pipe in them, and they're kept in a nylon tube of some kind. And about 15 feet of that goes right into the dirt, and it comes up through a pipe, and it comes all the way through the slab. And typically it's a full PVC glued, and you exit all the way up through a shaft, typically a fireplace flue, and you go all the way up through the attic and all the way up through the top of the roof, and you exit it through that means. If you can take it up through a cavity without a lot of bends, all the better. The point is that pipe, that perforated pipe below the slab, that becomes your path of least resistance. So it finds its way in the pipe. On top of that, if you have excessive issues with radon gas, you can put some a bisqueen or a plastic covering over the entire foundation. After you do all that, and after you compact everything and all your conduits and everything are done, you can cover the whole thing with plastic. And then if that radon gas hits that plastic before it even hits your foundation, it's going to find that tube, that perforated pipe, and that's going to be your path of least resistance. And again, takes it all the way up through the roof. You don't want to vent it out the side of a wall where it can come up and work its way back into an open window. You got to take it all the way through the top of the roof. And again, radon gas isn't a lot of gas. It's not like you necessarily smell it, but a little bit over a long period of time can affect you. You can't really smell it, but it can affect you over a long period of time. So you're trying to solve for that long period of time in that perforated pipe. So that's the best way, and it's the most efficient way that I know of. There are other ways as well. There's mechanical, but I stay away from mechanical, meaning a forced air venting system. I try to stay away from those if I can naturally vent it in that means. So, and radon gas, it naturally, it goes up. It's like helium. It wants to keep going up. So I hope that answers your question for you. Let's take some other questions here.
Here you go.
Okay, Maryland. This is from Maryland. Have you ever had a new HVAC outside coil leak fail 1 month after the 1-year labor warranty expires? Does this seem unusual? It doesn't. I've not seen it that close to a new build, but you have a outside coil leak. That could be because of freezing temperatures there in Maryland, and I'm willing to bet more than likely that's your cause. And I've seen a lot of people having a lot of problems with the massive cold temperatures that come down. And all it takes is a little condensation inside that pipe. And we're talking about the copper pipe. That's your condensate line. That's where water is coming down and exiting through the system. And it probably wasn't flushed out during the summer because that condensate line is for cooling, not your heating system for the most part. Okay. And there could have been a little bit of water in there. Even if it's looped like that, and you got a little water in there, it will freeze and pop. And those copper lines do not handle freezing. Not like a PVC or not like a PEX piece of pipe. It can do a little bit of expansion and contraction, but the copper does not. And all those condensate lines that run to your condenser unit, they all have those copper lines in them. Not sure why. Maybe they'll stop those in the down the road. A lot of it's because they handle a lot of PSI pressure. They can handle that. They have a wet flange at the end of them. So yeah, just you have to get it fixed, but make sure you service your unit at the end of the summer and don't let water sit inside that. Okay, good question. Wish I had my HVAC guy here. He
I know. I was just thinking maybe you could call around to different HVAC people and ask them if they've had this issue at all.
Yeah, I know I was missing some stuff. I was just guessing from a lot of experience, but Paul, my HVAC guy, he would answer that much better than me. Michael, building in Virginia, West Eastern Shore, a well installer offers buried or mechanical room pressure tank location. Does it matter either way? Well installer offers buried or mechanical room pressure tank location. I wouldn't do a buried one. You'd want to get access to it. And that's really a diaphragm. That's what that is, a pressure tank. So the water comes out of the well and it's got a water pump and it's pushing it. Okay. So there's a little bit of PSI in that well pump. As it's pushing it out of the well, it's going to go into a tank. As it goes into that tank, there's a diaphragm that expands like this. And then that diaphragm pushes water back, but not into the well, but into the house, into the unit of the home. That way, when you have water, you're drawing water, you have instant pressure. And then the well pump turns on and the whole thing with the diaphragm, the well pump, you're pulling water into the home. If you just rely upon the well pump itself, then you can sometimes have a long delay until you get a nice flow of water. So that's what that buried or mechanical room pressure tank is all about. And I'd go with the largest pressure tank you can. I've seen them that are 20 gallons. I've seen them 40 and 50 and 60 gallons. And there's some really big ones as well. But they're really nice. They have sustained pressure in the home because you don't have city water. You don't have a culinary water source. You are the water source. You are the water a service master, basically. And so you have to be able to sustain the PSI that you need for your home. So I'd get it out of the ground. I wouldn't put it in the ground. I'd put it in the mechanical room if you can. Okay. Good question. Ma Pearl, Western Washington State, broke ground the other day. Cool. Thanks for the forms in your program, which you gave confidence to move forward. That they help so much. I'm glad.
Oh, good.
Okay. Do you offer a home warranty on your builds? And if you do, what company do you use? Building in La Platte and Maryland.
Maryland.
To be honest with you, when you buy a home warranty, and my wife is going to chime in on this one,
Yeah.
most home warranties really cover mechanical only. They don't cover structural. But I'm held under my contract that I will build the home per specifications, according to the engineered requirements of the home. If there's anything that goes wrong with the home, like a foundation just cracks and falls into a sinkhole, or something like that, just because I didn't prep the ground right, then my insurance kicks in and covers that cost. And I've only had one claim in 25 years, and that was on a cricket on a roof. And the architect didn't design it right. I tried to solve the problem, but I didn't make the pitch steep enough, and I had to go in there and repair it. So that's all I've had, and the cost was excessive because it had some damage inside. My insurance company covered it, and we got it repaired real quick. So that's where my insurance is. For me, if you go to the download section, you'll see architects, engineers, and resources. And I have 2 or 3 different insurance companies that I know them all, and a lot of my students have used them. Try Summit Insurance. He actually specializes in this, and he goes across the country and he teaches general contractors and even owner builders how best to insure their property during the course of construction. So check them out. They're in the download section. You'll find them there. And it's the architects, engineers, suppliers, and other resources. It's that download. Okay.
And most subcontractors warranty their work, don't they, honey?
They have to for a year on my contract. And most of them do warranty it for a year. And it's really their insurance company that's got the warranty. Although they give you a warranty, it's a written warranty. That written warranty is backed by whatever insurance coverage they have. So yeah, just a year. I've had one person redo my contract, and he wanted a 5-year warranty on the home. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not your builder for you. I only give a 1-year warranty. Nobody gives a 5-year warranty.
And also, if you wanted to do home warranty plans, there are a whole bunch of national plans. I'm used to the ones in Utah, and it's like you're not in Utah, but that's usually for lived-in homes that are several years old. But once in a while, even all the builders that I've had my clients do, they all offer at least a 1-year builder warranty.
Yeah.
So I haven't had anybody, but I think they do offer it. I think they do offer a warranty for that.
Some builders will do this. At the end of a build, I will retain $2,000 to $5,000 based upon the complexity of the build. And if there's something that needs to be fixing, I just add that cost into the actual cost of the build. So if they need something, that GFI wasn't working, I'll go in there and get it fixed, but I'll have resources to get some things done like that. And at the end of the year, if they needed something extra, like for example, I had a client, she was walking down the steps, tripped and fell, grabbed a hold of the railing, and she was tripped in such a way she ripped the railing from the wall. She broke it. And so I said, okay, yeah, we'll get it fixed. And we mounted it in a stronger way. But she was pregnant and she was carrying a lot of weight, and just the whole thing came out of the wall. So that funds that I retained at the end of the build, then I use that to fix that. And if there's extra funds there at the end of the first year, then I would just give that back to the client. And so sometimes these are things that are unknown to me. There's no fault of my own. There's just something that went wrong during the course of the living in process. I've had all kinds of things pop up, and as a result, I have those funds to get them. And it's basically wear and tear. And they call me, they don't know where else to go. I go, great, no problem, we'll take care of it. There's funds in your account to solve that problem. And they like the fact that I did that. But if it's not my fault, if it is my fault, or it's a negligent thing or quality of install or something, then it's a big enough issue, then that goes into my insurance if I don't want to cover it with my own costs. So, okay, next one. Good question. I'm in Denver, Colorado. Yeah, you got some radon stuff issues there, so look into that. And have finished all the rough in work. Should I pour the shower pan before installing insulation and drywall? No. Actually, yes and no. Let me explain. You'll want to do the drywall first, all right? But that's a Den's Shield drywall. It's specifically designed to withstand mold and mildew. After you get that done, you're going to want to tape and texture. Once the tape and texture is done and the sanding's all done, then install your pan. Why do I say that? Because the concrete that they put in for the pan, if you dust, that fills up all that silica inside the pan, and it makes it harder to bind the tile to. And I had a lot of tile guys say, "Is your drywall guy done? And is the sanding done?" I go, "Yeah, I'll come now," because they don't want to fight that silica. They have to vacuum it up, and it's still not clean. They want a real, true concrete binding surface substrate in order to hit their tile to it just perfectly. And that includes the pan. So they don't install the pan yet, and then they won't even start the tile yet or any of that until all the drywall's in. So get your drywall in. And then the pan has to have a pan inspection. So they put, if it's a bladder system or whatever, they put water in it after they've got it all prepped. Make sure it holds water. If it holds water, great. They can move forward with the next steps. So make sure you get a pan inspection with your local permitting office. But after all the tape and texture. Okay, good question. Stan, help deciding B2 sites between two sites on our farm in western Wisconsin. Comparing cost to build, one would need fill to bring up elevation for slab home. Fill is on site, okay, native soils, or we'd build 2-story into a hill. That's an interesting question. The 2-story is going to be harder to design. It's going to more than likely require some deck or steps. Your elevation is going to be really hard to hit on the 2-story. If you're experienced and you really can eyeball the elevations just right, the backfill and everything, that's fine. The problem with into a hill is you have a lot more dirt work than you plan on. And then if you don't hit your elevation right, you're going to have to bring in some elevation, some dirt, and then you're going to have to compact it against the foundation for proper settling. Otherwise, you're going to have some settling issues. There's a lot more variables that are unknown outside your peripheral vision with building in the hill than just building up a pad, and any excavator can do that. So I would go with more of a flat elevated surface, especially if it's your first build. So good question. But then I haven't seen both sites, and the other site could be a killer site, and I go, "Oh, you got to build here. It's too pretty." So I don't know. Okay, next one.
Yeah, this is just a response from his HVAC.
The HVAC people are quite blasé about it, and they love being able to charge their retail price for the arbor for the builder rather than accept warranty fee scheduled from manufacturer. Just ask if it's a builder, ask for a 1-year warranty, and then the builder's responsible to make sure they get the insurance policy of all of their subcontractors, so they can hit their subcontractors during that first year if it's got a problem. I've had a GFI go out, my electrician goes there, fixes it, repairs it, no problem. Little small things like that, and they will cover that in the first year. Okay. LC 1991 LLC. Do you have any experience using aircrete as insulation? What is your opinion on this insulation? Well, it's more, I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe it's open cell, which means that it's vapor permeable. It's aerated concrete, aircrete. It's basically got a little bit of Portland cement and little beads of foam. And then the beads of foam are mixed with the Portland cement per se, and they mix those up, but it's highly vapor permeable because concrete's permeable. And as a result, I believe it's also not air intolerant, meaning air can come through, meaning that if you really wanted something with high R value, that's not going to be it. If you wanted higher R value, a closed cell foam, polyiso foam would actually do better than aircrete. However, with that said, I've built a whole shed with a 12-inch wall aerated concrete form. It wasn't per concrete. There's no aggregate sand or gravel in it. Instead, it was that bead polyiso foam. They mix and they compress and they build these building blocks with it. And I haven't found that to be very comfortable. OmniBlock is superior to that because it's got 2 thermal breaks in it. So you're not going to have any air or wicking of cold and heat from the one side of the wall to the other one. I just haven't found a very efficient use of it. And I know some people have been interested in it, but they're interested in it because it's affordable. It's pretty cheap stuff. However, the stuff I use wasn't that cheap. So that's my take. Hope that helps you out. So what order should I complete these? Tile or hardwood flooring first? Tile, because they make a big mess and they splatter everywhere. Even the best ones make a mess. And you don't want to have to cover and protect the floor during that process. Let your tile guys dominate the floor, let them do their thing, and they bring the tile right up to where it's going to meet with the subfloor. They have a clean edge right there. And so the flooring guys can actually hit that edge perfectly. So yeah, that's the order you need to go at. Okay.
This is a good question.
Hi, Keith. I noticed some houses in rural parts of Arizona are on a shared well. What are your thoughts on this? Thanks. If each owner owns part of that well, that's great. However, sometimes that's not necessarily the case. I belong to a water system up here, and that water system is privately owned. And when they're privately owned, especially if they're not very big, they're not very quick to jump on things. They're not very quick to help you out. They put the meter costs on you to install it. And then if anything goes wrong with the meter, it's your responsibility, not theirs. However, if it was a city jurisdiction and a meter went bad, the city's responsible for that. So a lot of water systems and small little operations like that, you want to find out if you're an actual owner in it, like a cooperative. If you're not, then really they push a lot of costs back on you. And then they're responsible based upon state guidelines on filtration, cleaning, and purifying the water. They're held to that standard. If it's got a big draw, like 200 or 300 homes on it, then they would have the resources to make sure that water is efficient and proper for the usage of each home. But if there's only like 7 homes on it that's drawing from that well, who's responsible for making sure that that water is tested? Who's taking that accountability? What I've learned is that responsibility is in direct proportion to the number of people involved in something. So if you have 25 people or 100 people involved, guess what? The depth of responsibility is greater with 100 people than with just 25 people. So I would want a water system that has a number of people on it, a greater number, or hopefully you have some really smart people who know how to watch the water, check the filters, and check, because you're dealing with a civil situation here. You're guaranteeing that water is going to meet state standards, and are you willing to take that responsibility? So that's what I would look at. How big is the number of people drawing from that water? And that should actually help you determine if they have the leadership to manage it. Okay, good question, though.
This is a good comment. Small town fella, 1353. Yeah. First time commenter, been listening for a few weeks. Appreciate the content. And we appreciate you and everybody that's listening. Please give us a thumbs up so others can find us. Okay.
Okay, Eastern Shore of Virginia, okay, with 56-inch stem wall on 2 24 by 16 footers to form crawl space. Pros, cons of poured concrete versus CMU stem wall. Okay, really, really good question. The stem wall, solid concrete, is going to be stronger. Just the way it is, okay? And it's going to be a faster pour. and it's going to be a little more stronger against anybody hitting that wall. If I had my skidster and I hit a CMU wall, the CMU wall is really a cinder block. It's not really a solid concrete aggregate wall, a cinder block wall. What happens when I take a cinder block wall and I drop it on a concrete sidewalk? It breaks in half, it breaks in pieces. What if I take the same amount, same square footage, and it's a solid cube of concrete with rebar in it, and I drop that on the sidewalk? It's not going to break. Typically not going to break. So there's a lot of a greater strength in a solid stem wall. But what's interesting is you're a 56-inch stem wall. In my neck of the woods, in my altitude, I'm 36 inches of frost depth. So you're deeper. All right. And on top of that, you're 24 inches wide and 16 inches deep on your footers. So your footers that's part of your stem wall. Okay. So I want you to think about this. If your footing is 16 inches deep, okay, and it's 24 inches high, that's 36, if I'm correct. No, what is that? That's 24, 34, 34, 30, what is that? 40 something? I don't have my calculator with me. Not adding that up right. Let me figure something out. So one of them's the footers are 24 inches wide, but they're 16 inches deep. So that's 16 inches. That 16 inches is part of your 56-inch stem wall or your 56-inch frost depth. I don't know if you're factoring them in. Let's say that they're part of the same thing, and you've got 16 inches on top of your 56 inches. All right, do the numbers on that. 56 inches, divide that by 12. That's 4 feet 6 inches, just the 56 inches alone. So you've got a stem wall that's 4.5 feet high. You can crawl under it like this, but what's the difference between walking under it like that? We're talking about the difference between a very deep and tall stem wall and a full basement. Mm-hmm. And that's where you're going to save a lot of money because you're going to have a lot of equity in the home. If I was building a home and I had to do a 56-inch stem wall, I'd just go all the way down and put a basement in there. Now, you don't have to do a 10 or 11-foot basement. You can do a 9-foot basement. You can. And you can actually have top cord bare where the trusses fit inside it. So you might have an 8.5-foot ceiling. You can do that if you need to really, really, really save. I wouldn't recommend that. It's also challenging for window wells because you need at least a foot above a window well for rebar as a bond beam for strength to hold any weight above. So once you make that bedroom or that basement really, really shallow, you encroach on that. So a 9-foot ceiling is probably most ideal. But think about that. You can capture a full basement and it's probably for just a little bit more and you don't have to finish it. But now you've got all that square footage and that's going to be great with the bank. I'll let my wife make a comment on that.
Yeah, that extra square footage will help you with resale, with appraisal, everything. Like if you're already building a half a wall, just price it out for the other half. I think it will more than pay off to put that in.
Yeah. Excavators there. What's the difference between going another 3 feet or so for a basement? And then the concrete crew, they've already got the forms there. They're going to have to use a tall form there anyway and reach down. It's going to be much, much easier to try to go with a full basement. So.
And I'm sure your wife will love it having extra space.
Yeah, she will. Most stem walls are 3 feet and below. That's 4 feet and above. And when you get to that point, you just put a full basement on.
Yeah, it's almost 5 feet.
Yeah. My understanding is here in Maryland, as a new home builder, I need to either have a surety bond or offer a home warranty. Which do you think is the best route? Just a home warranty. The surety bond is really about incomplete work. So cities will ask for a bond on a project, meaning that it could be a $400,000 bond. In the event that something happens to me and I walk away, then the bond that I purchased will kick in and cover for the rest of the build. But that's not the same as insurance. So warranty is after the fact. The warranty is after it's all built. Now you hit the warranty for any misdeeds done on the project. So I don't know how a surety bond kicks in after a build. It's only during the course of the build. Warranty is after things are built. Okay, good question.
Yeah, and there might be some national ones that do offer home warranties with new builds. I am pretty sure there are. I just don't have those national ones on. The ones here in Utah, Acclaimed home warranty, Elevate home warranty. And I have gotten some national ones because I've had clients from out of state come here and want their own. And so there are some home warranty options.
Okay, next one. Small town, building a small home 30 by 32 house in North Carolina and scheduled to build a 40-foot foundation on February 23rd. First time owner builder, any advice on how to ensure the foundation is set properly and doesn't settle over time? Yeah, talk with your excavator and make sure that the house has compaction tests. And that's what your geotech will come and do. They'll come and do compaction tests, which should typically pass 95% or higher. And they'll do 2 or 3 random compaction tests on that foundation. And they'll do it on the footings first, pour the footings, then they'll get ready to pour if it's a slab. I don't know if this is a slab. Then they'll do the slab or stem wall. And then if it's a slab, they'll do some compaction tests throughout. And what I do is I put 6 inches to 12 inches of compacted city spec road base as my foundation before I even put my concrete on there. And then of course I put rebar. If it's a slab on grade, I put rebar, number 3 rebar, 2 to 3 foot on center. And I make that call before we actually go, because I look at the geotech report. I look at the saturation rate. I look at a lot of other factors of the geotech report and say, oh, let's put this on 2 foot on center. And the last thing I do, which I've now changed in a lot of my homes, I used to do control cut joints, 10 foot on center, meaning every 10 feet, I put a control cut joint, which is a saw cut within 14 to 18 hours after it's poured, and it's cut evenly down 3/4 of an inch. I now do that 4 foot on center. And I'm finding that that's really solving for even the most hairline cracks, because I'm trying to tell the cracks where to go. I'm trying to guide them where to go. We're going to do a video on a home that we actually did that on, and the client liked it so much. She had the concrete polished, ground down, so you can see the pebbles. And we did a really nice polish coat on it. And we're going to do a video on it on Monday. But what's also neat is this home has 2 ADUs in it. Think about building a home where you have 2 ADUs in it, where those ADUs will pay your mortgage. Imagine that. I believe that's the future. Not just 1 ADU, but 2. Don't tell the city I have the second one. It's not installed, but it's a future possibility. Right now, it's just for family. But the one is approved by the city, even a driveway right up to it. So we're going to do a video on that. Okay. Good question. Ma Pearl, please speak more about the W-9-4 form. I know that name, Ma Pearl. Where do I know that from? I've seen that somewhere.
Well, they've asked 2 other questions up above. How
do you manage and process them? That's a really good question. There's a bookkeeper, and then there's the accountant. Okay, but the bookkeeper is really broken into 2 different types of persons. Okay, like my daughter does the invoicing and the estimating and pays the bills and stuff like that. My bookkeeper takes it from there, and she will actually pay salary.
I think are they talking about the W-9s of the subcontractors?
No, that it's actually recording it against the W-9. So the W-9 will actually include either their social security number or their EIN number. And I don't know a lot about that, to be honest with you. My bookkeeper does my stuff for 10 years. She manages that, and then she communicates directly with my tax man. and then she budgets things and moves things around to make it work for taxes, and they do all that behind the scenes. Maybe I should have her come in and talk about that. I have some other people that are talented that could possibly come on and talk about that. That might be a guest to have on, sweetie.
Yeah, I'm writing it down. Well,
yeah.
So we can, because Mackenzie would know that better.
But here's what I do know. All of my subcontractors are 1099 or W9. The W9 is more of an employee that you have, and you have to pay workers' comp and all that kind of stuff with. The 1099 is where you've got their EIN number, and you are paying that EIN number, and they're responsible for their workers' comp. They're responsible for all of that stuff. But I can't do that unless I have their EIN number. With a W-9, it's more of a social. It's more of an individual contracted employee, and it's different for every state. But maybe we can get a tax person in to really give you some insight on that.
No, a W-9 is with another business.
Yeah,
because that's what we have to give W-9s when we give referrals out with real estate, and so we'll get Mackenzie.
Yeah, that's because they want the money to come to the EIN number, not to their social.
Yeah, the EIN.
So
okay.
Just keep in mind, if you're paying directly to a social security number, you tend to be more liable for workers' comp and all that kind of stuff. If you're paying to an EIN number, whether it's 1099 or W-9, if you're paying directly to that EIN number, then that person's responsible for that. That's why people are 1099. That's the big popular phrase. 1099 means I'm an independent contractor. I will take responsibility for all my own stuff, so give me the money.
And I know Mackenzie has in each binder with the subs, she has the W-9s and the insurance, and she keeps it in a hard copy too with the binder.
Okay. ESTA 5873. Yes, both building sites have beautiful views and are conveniently the same distance from the well and power. Two-story option would go into the footprint of the current milking barn being taken down. Well, that might help if there's already a footprint there that's been somewhat excavated. But keep in mind, when they excavate that milking barn, there's probably concrete there. And when that concrete gets removed, it disturbs the soil in such a way you're almost at ground zero, starting fresh. But you're probably excavated out pretty much where you want to be, but I don't know. I can't tell. You can make that call, that decision. But if there's a cost in taking out that milking barn, that's maybe a cost you might want to avoid and build it elsewhere. I don't know. You get to make that decision. So, okay. We hate cleaning grout lines and shower tiles. What is a good option for a large, durable, low maintenance, zero entry shower with few, if any, grout lines? Quartz. Okay.
Cultured marble.
Cultured marble, but you're going to still have the grout lines, and those grout lines aren't grout. They're caulk. They're silicone. And the silicone over time really does worse than the grout line. Yeah. So the only real solution for you is solid concrete ground down and polished. If you can do that, and then you have a solid clear coat on it, you're not going to have any grout lines, and and I've done that on homes. I might be able to show you a picture on one.
We had one that was the pebbles. So we had the pebbles, but there was still grout.
Yeah.
And then there's like the new trend is just butting it up, and it makes it a thin grout line. You could hardly see.
Yeah. In the Philippines, not so the Philippines, but it's an Oriental country. They actually have abolished gum, and they're very clean, and they take their grout lines really, really close. Now that requires a different kind of grout with a very fine silica material that puts in there. And then I wouldn't go with the 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch. I'd go with even an 1/8 of an inch and a larger tile. If you can go with a larger tile and it's an 1/8 of an inch, fine. But I love the pebbled look on a shower, and it's a lot of grout. But when they seal that, it looks really, really, really good. And so you don't notice any grout stains per se. But it's really what you want to do. But you can't go with a large tile in the shower because it's curved, and you can't set that tile just right, which is why they have those small tile pieces in a netting, so it just sits just perfectly in the bottom of the shower. So it probably can't get away from it, but if you really had a problem with it, have your guy pour concrete and have him power wash the concrete just when it's ready to power wash and have some of that aggregate exposed. And you can probably do it with pea gravel. When you see the video on a home I recently did, you're going to fall in love with it. And people are going to say, I want that in my shower. I want that in my bathroom. So there's things you can do. The only people who can do that are flat work people that are experienced with exterior landscape flat work, people who do sidewalks and stuff like that. They're not used to slab on grade type stuff. So you might ask them, hey, can you do this and power wash it within 3 hours after it's cured and formed, and they can get that exposure you want. So it's something to think about.
Yeah, I'll keep my eyes open. The Parade of Homes starts tomorrow in our area, and I'll pay more attention to those showers. Mackenzie, that would be another good question for Mackenzie, but she's not here.
Yeah.
This is a two-part question, so I'll have to.
Was trying to add a little guest house for my mom and was told I would probably need a whole separate mound septic system in addition to the main home system for that. Architect says if I remove the cooktop and add it later, it would count as an ADU. What are your thoughts on this situation? To be honest with you, the way to get around this type of stuff, and I'm going to be really straight up, is you never call it an ADU. You just call it an addition to your home. And you just call it open space. Open space addition to the room, to the room. And if you can do that, you can kind of work around the headaches that you can run into with the permitting office. However, if you do a separate building, call it an ADU, put in a bedroom in there, define it as that, put in a kitchen in, now you're increasing the burden on yourself to fit within the requirements of the code that the city or county has for you. But the code for a remodel addition is a lot easier to fit into your whole situation than just saying you're going to do an ADU. I'm just being really honest with you. Having worked with a county planning commission and seeing how things operate with both city and county and dealing with issues that students run into all the time, the best approach in my mind is to not call it what you want to do with it. Just call it an addition and get away from some of the headaches. Because I'm of the opinion that the septics are overbuilt in the first place, way overbuilt in the first place. And right now, septic systems are so overbuilt, it's crazy. Like on this home, I've got a septic system. I went 12 feet down. I have 6 feet of aggregate wrapped around this leach line. I could literally run my sinks and kitchen, everything 24/7 for a week straight, and I still wouldn't have any backfill. I wouldn't have any water backing up into the home because the percolation rate is so insane that it's going right down through the mountain, down through multiple layers of soil. Unless you have a really, really bad situation and your soils can't handle it, and then it starts to put some pressure on you. But to try to avoid too much information, it's kind of like saying, my wife would always tell me, it's this too much information, honey. You're giving too much information away. Just call it an addition. And I think and then you can do what you want later on. So best to you. Hope I answered that right for you. In Michigan, building a walkout basement, how thick an underslab insulation can you safely use? That's not impossible to keep under the slab during the pour. About 2 inches of rigid poly ISO is about the max I would do. That gives you a thermal break. But you're down in a basement. And my main concern with basements is drainage. So if you've got a basement And I like to do my slabs 5 inches thick just for the heck of it. If it's really cost prohibitive, maybe 4 inches, but I never go 3.5 inches. But 5 inches thick. And if you really wanted that thermal break, so you don't have any cold wicking, but it's not going to be so much. However, you are in Michigan. Sorry, it's very cold up there. You may have a frost depth that's really, really low up there. But I would just watch out for water penetration into the basement from any peripheral access down the road. If you think water can get into that basement, you're going to want to solve that before you actually pour the basement itself. So keep that in mind. But look into polyiso. It handles a lot of PSI strength. I've put homes on, call it polyiso, and they've done just fine. It can handle the PSI strength. And you actually put your rebar on top of that, holds it down. Rebar is about 1 inch or 2 inches above the polyiso with chairs that it's being supported on, and that holds the polyiso down. And when you pour your concrete, it's great. So a lot more people are doing that, especially in cold climates like that. Good question.
Oh, somebody just added to that shower thing. Check out
Yes,
Stone
check
Coat.
out Stone Coat countertops, shower options. Yeah, there's a lot of new products on the market. I need to talk with a friend of my networking group to tell him, hey, if you're so good with doing all these concrete stuff, you need to get into showers. People would love to have you do a full solid membrane coated shower in a concrete product. So, good question.
Okay. That's
let's see here. I was trying to add a little guest house. Let's see anything else here. There's a lot. If you haven't watched the market update, do that. We've done a market update for the year. It's on the channel right there, and it gives you some really good insight. To be honest, if like I said in the channel, if your economics are really solid, you got a good job, and you don't foresee any unknowns down the road, or you're self-employed and you're doing great, now is the best time to build. If those two things are just really solid with you, then now is a good time to build. Labor is at an all-time low. For the past 7-8 years, it's now looking for work. There's a lot of people looking for work. Material costs are down. Oil, lumber costs are down. If oil's down, everything else is down. Lumber's down from its high in the COVID area almost by 31%. So if for some reason we go into an economic troubling time, the natural inclination is for the government to print money, lower interest rates to stir the economy. Watch out for that. If we find that interest rates suddenly drop, and they've been high for, how long have they been high, sweetie?
We were hoping for them to go down last May and the May before that, but they were higher. Like they were at 8%
right
a year and a half ago, and then they came down to 7%, and now they're at 6%.
Right.
But that's not for building. That's just for final. Building interest rate is always higher. I think building, it's like 6.5%, 7% right now.
Right. But what would happen if it suddenly dropped to 4 or even 3.5%?
Oh, everything would go up. Like
everything
prices would go up. Everybody start buying. It would be back to a 2020 deal.
Yeah. So that's what you have to watch out for, is that right now everything else is great for building except for the interest rate. But if the interest rate, you're watching for that to drop, guess what? You're getting a lower interest rate, but everything else is going up. Where do you want to be on that pendulum? Do you want to be where labor and materials are lower now in a situation like we have now? Or do you want a lower interest rate, but everything else to be higher? So you have to decide for that. This here interest rate, that comes and goes, up high, down low, up high, down low. And you can kind of jump in when it's a little more opportune for you. But it's harder to jump in when the situation is what we have now. That's not always the given for you. And so I really strongly recommend getting some land now, even if you can't afford to build, getting that land and start doing some improvements on it, cleaning it up, hiring people to do what they can. So right now is a really good time for owner builders. Probably the best time we've had in probably 6-7 years, probably.
There's some really good thoughts in here. people are doing. So David, China is selling US bonds right now.
So is Japan. Japan's our biggest holder of US securities. Everyone's liquidating all of the debt that we offshored to other countries. They're all liquidating that slowly, because if they didn't do it, they'd all be in trouble and they couldn't liquidate it themselves. So we have no means to offshore debt anymore. But what's that going to do? That's going to lower the dollar substantially. It's going to crash the dollar. But now look what's going to happen. It's going to make us look more profitable for manufacturing, job creation, stuff like that. It hurts, but it's a benefit down the road. Most people, businesses went elsewhere for cheap labor. Now that the dollar is crashing, now that labor is starting to look better here in the United States. I mean, that's really what we're looking at. All right. So just watch those interest rates and watch how much money is being jacked into the economy from the federal government. If we have a really nasty crash, be very careful. We could have a real spike in inflation, and you don't want to build in an inflationary situation. I was building during the COVID era. It was not fun. Lumber was going boom, 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 and I was having to have material dropped off to the job site and sit there in the elements for 2-3 months because I had to do it just to fight the inflationary factor that was hitting me. And it was not
a lot of builders were canceling all their contracts or telling the buyers that they had an additional $20,000, $30,000 lumber bid. Like, It was bad.
It was not fun. So you want to build during a time like that because it has cheap interest rates, or you want a little higher interest rate now and really stable and affordable prices that are easy to predict now. So,
okay, I'm going to go to this comment because David, and then I'll go back to some questions because this is really good thought.
You can't refinance expensive wood. Lower goods at lower interest that you can refinance later is always better. Really good point. Yeah. Yeah. Brady Morgan. Hey, Brady. Do you see more owner builders building large homes or small homes? From listening to you, it seems like large homes are more common. Just curious. I have an owner builder building a 20,000 square foot home right now.
And we're seeing multi-gen, right? Yeah. People are building homes so their mother or father can live with them, or kids.
Yeah. It's just the bigger the home, the more complexity it puts on you, not really knowing a lot of the factors. The smaller the home, it's easier to manage. But keep in mind that it's cheaper to build a bigger home than it is to build a smaller home. The cost per square foot on a bigger home is actually a lower cost per square foot than a smaller home. The way I can explain it is this way. If you're a concrete guy and you pour foundations for people and you say, oh, I've got this cute little home. I'd love to have you come bid. It's an 800 square foot slab on grade patio home. And somebody over here says, hey, Joe, can you bid my home? I've got a 3,600 square foot home. It's all on a slab. I'd love to have you bid it. Same pretty much work from each job, but you're going to make a lot more over here, and you can be a lot more competitive with your price than you have with the 800 square foot home. This is why the tiny home fiasco is a fiasco, because the cost per square foot is far greater than what anyone is really talking about. Look at that real factor. Do the first steps course. Take the first steps course, and that will wake you up to the real cost per square foot in your market. And it will give you that comfortable range. You might have been thinking about doing a 1,200 square foot home, but suddenly it turns into an 1,800 or 2,200 square foot home at hardly any additional cost. You have to really look at that.
Yeah. Even if you have a 1,200 square foot home and you decide, oh, let's do attic trusses so we can use that space, it makes all the difference in your price per square foot drops. Right.
And that's the cheapest square footage you can get. So yeah, for those that are thinking of a basement, think about attic trusses. If your excavation costs are through the roof, just go vertical. I trust you. You'll actually be pleasantly surprised. Any other questions here?
Yeah, there's more.
I think older build is a missed opportunity for many first-time home builders. Can build your own 1,200 square foot ranch for a great price compared to market rates these days. Very true. Very true. You have to think about this. Never buy from a big builder. I mean, a big builder. You go into a subdivision, they've got all these homes. Look at the price that's marked up. I want you to imagine this. They go buy raw land, they bring amenities to it, fine, curb, gutter, maybe some of those other things. So they jack up the price substantially for all of that. Now they build a home on it. They get it at the most builder cost effective, streamlined approach they possibly can. But they now put it into the market, and they will charge that person whatever the market demands, whatever the most recent sold that's comparable. Doesn't matter the quality, doesn't matter how well it was built, doesn't care about any of those things. But versus if you do it yourself, you're eliminating some of the issues with the developer. You're handling some of that yourself with dirt work and stuff like that. You're eliminating the builder fee, which is a 10 to 15 or 23%, and you're eliminating the realtor fee on the home, but maybe not the land, unless you do an owner finance situation. That there is bare minimum 18 to 23% on the total cost of the home. You're eliminating those factors. Now, you have to get away from, I'm going to DIY this myself. No, you just DIY that yourself. That's far more effective, far greater savings. Now you can sub the whole thing out and enjoy yourself. Just go clean up a little bit and bring donuts and cookies to people and thank them for working for you. All right. You have to get yourself in that mindset. That's the biggest cost savings in a home. And if you can just do that alone and not try to DIY and be a biscuit head, you're going to be heads and shoulders above everyone else. All right. And you'll have equity when you're done with the home, positive equity. Okay. Okay. I don't think we have any.
Yeah, we do. Just a minute.
Okay.
So this is just from Brady. I build small homes.
Specs or rentals for $150K below market value. Granted, I live in a fairly expensive area, but that's a big amount for someone trying to get into their first home. Yeah, that's not bad, and that probably doesn't include the land, but that's not bad. I'm currently building a 760 square foot over a garage for myself. That's not bad. You're going to have a huge cost savings, and it's exciting to see people be able to take this on their own and build their own stuff. So we're going to be here every Thursday from 5 p.m. Don't forget, and before I get to this last question, go to How to Build Your Own Home, contact the instructor, and leave your questions there, and I will answer those first next week. We'll get this last question. And that does include land. Okay, that's been a very rural area.
He's up in Wyoming.
Okay.
Brady's in Wyoming.
Yeah,
but it's really expensive there. So saving $150,000 is great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, that's possible. Garage front of $400K. Yeah, it depends on dirt work. It all depends on stuff. And what I always teach students is to download the home site selection checklist. Make sure you're buying a home site that's not got nightmares in it. Okay.
Yeah, that's free. The home site selection checklist is free on our website.
It's free. Go to our home site. It's there. We need to test that. I just uploaded a little addition to it. So we need to test it, make sure it's working. So maybe my wife can do that real quick. Download that. If you can't get that, just reach us out, contact the instructor. It is in the coursework. It's in the download section. So if you're in the course, the self-managed course, you'll see it there as well. But yeah, just get informed. I had a student that I mentored just for an hour about a week ago, and he didn't purchase any of the courses. And as I was going through and talking with him, he made a mistake on the land purchase. It's got some real nightmares to it. And then he said, "Oh, my budget's okay. I think I know what I'm doing." And after listening to him and talking with him, his budget was missing a lot of factors. So the budget we have at How to Build Your Own Home has just about every line item you could ever imagine for building your own home. So as you're going through it, I didn't remember that, because it's there. It reminds you need to fill in that line item. You need to get a cost for that. And it walks you through that whole process. So you're not in the dark. Don't avoid buying something because you think you can do it on your own. Buy something because it's going to help you save an immense amount of money later on and speed up your process. The biggest mistake builders make, and I'll leave it with this one comment, is they think they can do it themselves, but at the cost of a greater time constraint. They have to figure it out themselves, do a lot of research, and the time they put into that could be far better spent in something else that brings them money. Now you have to think like an entrepreneur. Don't do something that somebody else can do for far less amount of time. Do something that you can do in an efficient amount of time. If that's what owner building is all about, is getting you into the entrepreneurial mindset, not into how cheap you can do it.
And with mentors, right? Like when I started real estate, I went 5 years just trying to figure it out, reinventing the wheel. And then as soon as my broker told me about this CRM and everything, my business started to multiply because I had systems in place. I had mentors in place to help me grow and work better, work smarter, and it saved me a bunch of time.
Okay.
And there is one more question real quick, Keith.
Go ahead. Is it realistic to build a decent sized home, 3 to 4 bedroom, basement, and garage under 400K? It depends on how big that home is here. So let's say it's 2,000 square feet, so 400,000.
And it also depends on where you're building too, because we're expensive here in Southern Utah.
Yeah, that's possible. It's $200 a square foot. You have to be extra cautious and be careful on that.
If you own the land, I think it's doable. At least in our area, if you own the land, you could probably do it. It wouldn't be too fancy. Okay, they're in Michigan. I don't know the prices in Michigan.
Okay.
But the first steps will give you a calculation if you wanted to know how to calculate that in your area.
Okay. All right. We're done. We'll see you guys next Thursday, 5 to 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and we will be here. Leave your message at howtobuildyourownhome.com. That link right there. Go to that link right there and leave your message, and like and subscribe, share, and leave comments that are wonderful. And that will help our algorithm, help us get out there to reach more people. Until then, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.
See you later.